Imagine for a moment that you're looking down at Earth from the International Space Station. There it is, this brilliant blue marble suspended in the cosmic void, teeming with life, buzzing with the energy of 8 billion human beings. Beautiful, isn't it? But here's a question that might make you pause. What if everything you see down there isn't quite what it seems? What if our entire planet, our entire species, our entire history is nothing more than an elaborate experiment? I know. It sounds like science fiction. But before you dismiss this idea, consider some rather unsettling facts about our world and our place in it. Let's start with us, humans. We're supposedly the product of millions of years of gradual evolution, right? Slow, steady progress from primitive primates to the complex beings we are today. Except there's a problem with that story. About 70,000 years ago, something extraordinary happened to our species. We experienced what scientists call the Great Leap Forward, a sudden, dramatic expansion in cognitive ability that has never been satisfactorily explained. Think about it. For hundreds of thousands of years, early humans used the same basic stone tools, lived in the same simple social structures. Then, almost overnight in evolutionary terms, we started creating art, developing complex language, building sophisticated societies. It's as if someone or something flipped a switch in our brains, but that's just the beginning. Around 10,000 years ago. Another curious thing happened. Agriculture, the foundation of all human civilization, emerged simultaneously across the globe. In isolated regions with no contact between them, humans suddenly figured out how to domesticate plants and animals. The timing is statistically improbable, to say the least. In Mesopotamia, they're cultivating wheat. In China, it's rice. In the Americas, corn and beans. In New Guinea, bananas and pigs. All at roughly the same time, all without any communication between these groups. What are the odds? Here's another puzzle. We're the only species on Earth that actively works against its own survival. Every other creature on this planet operates within natural boundaries, maintaining ecological balance. But us? We consume resources at unsustainable rates, poison our own environment, and wage wars that threaten our very existence. From an evolutionary standpoint, this behavior makes no sense. Unless it serves some other purpose. Now, you might be thinking, come on, this is just coincidence. Evolution is complex and these things happen. And you'd have a point. Except when we start looking at our planet itself, things get even more interesting. Earth sits in what astronomers call the Goldilocks zone. Not too hot, not too cold, but just right for liquid water and complex life. Our moon is exactly the right size to create stable tides that helped early life transition from sea to land. Our magnetic field protects us from deadly cosmic radiation. Our atmosphere has precisely the right composition to support life as we know it. Convenient, isn't it? Scientists have a name for this puzzle, the Fermi Paradox. Named after physicist Enrico Fermi, it asks a simple question. If the universe is so vast and filled with potentially habitable worlds, Where is everybody? Where are all the alien civilizations we should logically encounter? One possible answer is the zoo hypothesis, proposed by MIT radio astronomer John Ball. It suggests that advanced alien civilizations exist, but deliberately avoid contact with us. We're like animals in a cosmic zoo, carefully observed but kept isolated from the larger galactic community. But what if it goes deeper than that? What if we're not just being observed, but actively studied? Consider how we conduct experiments here on Earth. We create controlled environments. We introduce variables. We observe behavior patterns. We maintain boundaries to prevent contamination of results. Sound familiar? Our planet has all the characteristics of a perfect laboratory, isolated location, controlled environment, abundant resources, and a test subject, humanity, that displays fascinating and sometimes contradictory behaviors. We're creative yet destructive, cooperative yet territorial, capable of incredible love and devastating violence. From a scientific perspective, we'd be absolutely fascinating to study. The question isn't whether we could be part of an experiment. The question is, are we the subjects being studied, or are we the experiment itself? As we journey deeper into this mystery, we'll explore evidence that spans millennia, examine anomalies that challenge our understanding of history, and consider possibilities that might fundamentally change how we see ourselves and our place in the cosmos. Because if we are their experiment, what does that mean for us? Throughout human history, across every culture and continent, there's been a persistent thread woven into our oldest stories. We've always believed we were being watched. The ancient Sumerians wrote of the Anunnaki, beings from the sky who observed and guided human development. The Egyptians spoke of Nataru, divine watchers who maintained cosmic order. Hindu texts describe the Devas, celestial beings who monitored earthly affairs. The Hebrew Bible mentions the Nephilim, the watchers who descended from heaven, different names, different cultures, separated by thousands of miles and centuries of time. Yet the core narrative remains remarkably consistent. We are not alone, and we are being observed. Now, you might dismiss these as primitive attempts to explain natural phenomena or establish religious authority, and perhaps some of them are. But when we examine these accounts more closely, patterns emerge that are difficult to ignore. Take the Book of Enoch, an ancient Jewish text that describes the Watchers in remarkable detail. These beings are said to observe human behavior, sometimes intervening at crucial moments in our development. They possess advanced knowledge of astronomy, medicine, and technology. They can appear and disappear at will. They study us with scientific detachment. Sound like anyone you know. But it's not just ancient texts. Archaeological evidence suggests that our ancestors possessed knowledge they shouldn't have had. The Antikythera mechanism, discovered in a Greek shipwreck, is a bronze computer from 100 BCE that accurately predicted astronomical events. The precision of the Great Pyramid of Giza rivals modern construction techniques. Pumapunku in Bolivia features stone blocks cut with laser-like precision, fitted together without mortar in ways our engineers still struggle to understand. How did ancient civilizations, supposedly primitive by our standards, achieve such feats? Here's where it gets interesting. Many of these sites align with astronomical phenomena, solstices, equinoxes, star positions. It's as if our ancestors were documenting celestial events with scientific precision. But why? And more importantly, how did they know where to look? Consider Göbekli Tepe in Turkey. Built over 11,000 years ago by hunter-gatherers who supposedly lacked written language, agriculture, or even pottery. Yet the site demonstrates advanced astronomical knowledge, complex social organization, and sophisticated construction techniques. The pillars are carved with symbols that some researchers believe represent constellations and cometary impact events. Who taught them to read the stars? The answer might lie in the consistency of these ancient accounts. Across cultures that had no contact with each other, we find similar descriptions, beings of superior intelligence observing human progress, sometimes sharing knowledge, always maintaining distance. But here's what's truly fascinating. These historical accounts don't end in ancient times. They continue, evolving with our language and understanding, right up to the present day. The modern UFO phenomenon, which officially began with Kenneth Arnold's 1947 sighting, isn't really modern at all. It's simply the latest chapter in humanity's long history of reporting encounters with mysterious watchers. The technology may appear different, disc-shaped craft instead of chariots of fire, but the fundamental experience remains the same. Advanced beings observing human activity with apparent scientific interest. Dr. Jacques Vallée, a respected computer scientist and astronomer, has spent decades studying this phenomenon. His research reveals patterns in modern sightings that mirror historical accounts. The beings are described as conducting what can only be called field research, taking samples, performing medical examinations, studying human behavior and technology. Most intriguingly, these encounters often occur at significant moments in human development. The modern UFO era began just as we entered the atomic age. Sightings increased dramatically during the space race. They seemed to cluster around military installations, nuclear facilities, and sites of technological advancement. As if someone is monitoring our progress. U.S. military has recently acknowledged that these phenomena are real. The Pentagon's UAP task force has released videos showing objects that defy our understanding of physics, craft that accelerate instantly, change direction without turning, travel at impossible speeds without creating sonic booms. These aren't weather balloons or experimental aircraft. They represent technology far beyond our current capabilities, operated by intelligence we don't understand, for purposes we can only guess at. But perhaps the most compelling evidence lies not in individual sightings, but in the systematic nature of the observations. If you were studying a developing civilization, how would you do it? You'd observe from a distance. You'd avoid direct interference that might contaminate your results. You'd monitor significant technological developments. You'd study social structures, conflict patterns, and adaptation mechanisms. You'd remain in the shadows, watching, recording, analyzing the watchers in our ancient texts, the mysterious objects in our skies, the inexplicable knowledge of our ancestors. What if they're all part of the same long-term study? What if we've been under observation not for decades, but for millennia? And if that's true, then our planet isn't just our home. It's their laboratory. There's something peculiar about our cosmic neighborhood. Something so statistically unlikely that it should probably be impossible. Yet here we are, living in what might be the most perfectly designed prison ever conceived. Let's start with our moon. That single quotes wrong. Completely wrong. From an astronomical perspective, most moons in our solar system are tiny compared to their parent planets. Our moon is roughly 1/4 the size of Earth, proportionally massive beyond what we see anywhere else. It's so large that Earth and Moon are sometimes called the double planet system. The odds of capturing such a massive satellite through natural processes are astronomically small, but here's the really strange part, that impossible. Moon creates the exact conditions necessary for complex life to develop on Earth. The moon's gravitational pull creates tides that helped early life transition from ocean to land. It stabilizes Earth's axial tilt, preventing catastrophic climate swings that would make advanced life impossible. It gradually slowed Earth's rotation from a chaotic 6-hour day to our stable 24-hour cycle. Without our oversized moon, Earth would be a barren, uninhabitable world. Convenient, don't you think? Then there's our magnetic field. Most planets our size either have no magnetic field or fields so weak they're useless. Mars lost its atmosphere because it lacks magnetic protection from solar wind. Venus is a hellscape partly because its magnetic field is virtually non-existent. But Earth? We have a powerful, stable magnetic field that acts like an invisible shield, deflecting deadly cosmic radiation and preventing our atmosphere from being stripped away. This field has remained remarkably stable for billions of years. Another statistical improbability that happens to be essential for life. Our position in the galaxy is equally suspicious. We orbit our star in what astronomers call the galactic habitable zone, far enough from the galactic center to avoid deadly radiation, close enough to have the heavier elements necessary for rocky planets. We're in a relatively quiet spiral arm, protected from the chaos of stellar formation regions and supernova explosions. It's as if someone carefully selected the safest, most stable cosmic neighborhood and placed us there. But the most intriguing aspect of our cosmic situation might be what scientists call the Great Filter, proposed by economist Robin Hanson. The Great Filter theory suggests that there's some evolutionary steps so difficult that almost no species successfully passes through it. The question is the Great Filter behind us or ahead of us? If it's behind us, if we've already passed the nearly impossible step, then we should be among the first advanced civilizations in the galaxy. That would explain why we don't see evidence of alien civilizations everywhere we look. But what if the Great Filter is ahead of us? What if there's some developmental threshold that most species reach but cannot surpass? What if advanced civilizations consistently destroy themselves just as they're about to break free from their planetary boundaries? Here's a disturbing thought. What if the Great Filter isn't natural at all? What if it's artificially maintained? Consider our space exploration efforts. Despite 60 years of trying, we've never successfully established a permanent human presence beyond low Earth orbit. Every ambitious space program faces inexplicable setbacks, budget cuts, technical failures, or political cancellations just when breakthrough seems within reach. The Apollo program was canceled despite successful moon landings. The space shuttle program ended without achieving its goals. Mars missions consistently fail at rates that seem beyond mere bad luck. Advanced propulsion research loses funding. International cooperation on ambitious projects falls apart over political disputes that seem almost orchestrated. It's as if we're being kept within carefully defined boundaries. Dr. Michael Hart, an astrophysicist who studied the Fermi Paradox extensively, proposed what's known as the quarantine hypothesis. Advanced alien civilizations, he suggested, might deliberately isolate developing species to prevent contamination of galactic civilization. We'd be kept in a kind of cosmic nature preserve, allowed to develop naturally but prevented from spreading beyond our planetary boundaries until we reach some predetermined level of maturity. But what if it goes deeper than quarantine? What if our cosmic isolation serves an experimental purpose? Think about how we design controlled experiments here on Earth. We create isolated environments. We establish boundary conditions. We introduce variables and observe results. We prevent outside interference that might contaminate our data. From this perspective, Earth looks remarkably like a carefully controlled laboratory. We have abundant resources that allow for diverse experimentation with social structures, technologies, and survival strategies. We have environmental challenges that test adaptability. We have isolation that prevents contamination from outside influences. Most importantly, we have limitations that keep us contained within the experimental parameters. Our inability to develop faster than light travel isn't just a technical challenge, it might be an imposed restriction. Our consistent failure to establish sustainable space colonies might not be bad luck. It could be intervention. Our tendency towards self-destructive behavior might not be evolutionary baggage. It might serve experimental purposes. Consider how we study animal behavior in the wild. We observe from a distance, sometimes intervening to prevent total population collapse, but generally letting natural processes play out. We establish protected boundaries to maintain ecosystem integrity. We study how populations respond to various stressors, environmental changes, resource scarcity, population pressure. Sound familiar? The invisible cage around Earth might not be made of metal bars or energy fields. It might be made of carefully maintained technological limitations. subtly influence psychological tendencies, and strategically timed interventions that keep us exactly where our observers want us, we think. We're free agents exploring the cosmos and developing according to our own choices. But what if every major decision, every technological breakthrough, every social evolution has been quietly guided to serve purposes we don't even suspect? What if our entire history of struggle, achievement, and failure is just data? We live in the most monitored, measured, and analyzed generation in human history. Every click, every purchase, every movement, every social interaction generates data points that are collected, processed, and studied by algorithms we don't understand. For purposes we're rarely told about, we call it the digital age. But what if it's really the golden age of behavioral experimentation? Consider how thoroughly our lives are documented now. Your smartphone knows where you go, who you talk to, what you search for, how long you sleep, what makes you anxious, what makes you happy. Social media platforms analyze your posts, your likes, your viewing patterns to build psychological profiles so detailed they can predict your behavior better than your closest friends. We're told this is for advertising, for convenience, for connecting us with people who share our interests. But step back and look at the bigger picture. We voluntarily constructed the most comprehensive behavioral monitoring system ever imagined. And we carry it with us everywhere. From an experimental standpoint, this is a researcher's dream. Real-time psychological data from billions of subjects, collected continuously across every aspect of their lives, sorted by demographics, geography, and countless behavioral variables. But here's what's truly fascinating. We didn't build this system for research purposes. It emerged organically through the development of technologies that seem to serve other needs. Social connection, information access, entertainment, commerce. As if the technology itself was designed to create the perfect experimental conditions. Now, you might argue that this is just capitalism. Companies collect data to sell products and services, and that's certainly part of it. But consider the scope and sophistication of what's actually happening. The psychological manipulation techniques used by social media platforms go far beyond simple advertising. They're conducting massive experiments in human behavior modification. Facebook has admitted to manipulating users' emotional states by adjusting what appears in their news feeds. They wanted to see if they could make people happier or sadder simply by controlling the information they received. The experiment worked. They published the results in academic journals. Think about that. A private company conducted psychological experiments on nearly 700,000 people without their knowledge or consent. They deliberately manipulated emotions to study behavioral responses. And this was just one experiment they chose to make public. How many others haven't we heard about? But it's not just social media. Our entire modern world seems designed as a vast behavioral laboratory with different populations experiencing different experimental conditions. Look at economic systems. We have capitalism in the West, various forms of socialism in other regions, mixed economies, command economies, and hybrid systems. Each represents a different approach to organizing human society and managing resources. From a research perspective, these are perfect control groups for studying how different systems affect human behavior, social development, and technological progress. Consider political systems: democracy, authoritarianism, theocracy, technocracy. Each creates different pressures and incentives that shape how people behave, what they value, and how they solve problems. Again, perfect experimental conditions for studying human social organization. Even our conflicts seem to serve experimental purposes. The Cold War wasn't just a geopolitical struggle, it was a 40-year experiment in competing ideologies, testing different approaches to technology development, social organization, and resource allocation. Both sides developed different technologies, different social structures, different ways of thinking about human potential. When the Soviet Union collapsed, we didn't just witness the end of communism. We saw the conclusion of the largest controlled experiment in human social organization ever conducted, and now we have new experiments running. Climate change tests how human societies respond to global environmental challenges. The COVID-19 pandemic provided unprecedented data on human behavioral adaptation under stress. The rise of artificial intelligence is creating new experimental variables in human-machine interaction. Each of these challenges reveals different aspects of human nature, different adaptation strategies, different social responses, but perhaps the most intriguing experiment involves the manipulation of information itself. We're living through the first period in human history where information can be customized and targeted to individual psychological profiles. Different people can receive completely different versions of reality based on their browsing history, social connections, and behavioral patterns. This creates something unprecedented: the ability to conduct controlled experiments in belief formation and decision-making on a massive scale. Consider how conspiracy theories spread through social networks, how political polarization increases when people receive information that confirms their existing beliefs, how consumer behavior changes when algorithms predict and influence purchasing decisions. These aren't accidental phenomena. They're the predictable results of systems designed to study and influence human psychology. The most disturbing possibility is that we're not just subjects. In these experiments, we're active participants in our own manipulation. We eagerly adopt technologies that monitor us. We voluntarily share intimate details of our lives. We compete to present curated versions of ourselves for algorithmic analysis. We've gamified our own surveillance. From a research perspective, this is extraordinarily valuable data. How do humans behave when they know they're being monitored? How does the knowledge of surveillance change social dynamics? What happens when the line between authentic behavior and performed behavior becomes blurred? We're providing answers to these questions every day, generating terabytes of behavioral data that reveal patterns in human psychology we never knew existed. And here's the unsettling part: we don't know who has access to all this information or how it's being used. The algorithms that process our data operate like black boxes. The companies that collect our information share it in ways we don't understand. The governments that monitor our communications do so through programs we only learn about through leaks and whistleblowers. We're the most studied generation in human history, yet we have no idea who's conducting the studies or what conclusions they're reaching about us. What if the digital age isn't just about technological progress? What if it's about creating the perfect conditions for understanding human nature at scales and levels of detail never before possible? What if we're not just using technology, but being used by it? Let's examine the data, all of it. Because if we're going to seriously consider the possibility that humanity is part of some vast experiment, we need to look at the evidence with the same rigor we'd apply to any scientific hypothesis. And when we do that, the picture that emerges is both fascinating and deeply unsettling. Start with the astronomical evidence. The Drake equation, formulated by astronomer Frank Drake in 1961, estimates the number of communicating civilizations in our galaxy. Even with conservative estimates, there should be thousands of detectable alien civilizations. Yet after decades of searching with increasingly sophisticated technology, we found nothing. The silence is so profound that it has its own name. The Great Silence. But recent discoveries make this silence even more mysterious. The Kepler Space Telescope has identified thousands of potentially habitable planets. Some are remarkably Earth-like, rocky planets in the habitable zones of sun-like stars. The raw materials for life and intelligence appear to be abundant throughout the galaxy. So where is everyone? Dr. Enrico Fermi's famous question becomes more pressing with each new discovery. The universe should be teeming with life, yet we appear to be alone. Unless we're not looking in the right places, or we're not recognizing what we're seeing. In 2015, astronomer Tabitha Boyajian discovered something extraordinary. KIC 8,462,852, later called Tabby's star, exhibits light patterns that defy conventional explanation. The star dims irregularly, sometimes by as much as 20%, in ways that suggest massive structures orbiting around it. Natural explanations, comets, dust clouds, planetary debris, don't fit the observed patterns. The dimming events are too large, too irregular, too structured. Some researchers cautiously suggest we might be seeing evidence of megastructures, massive artificial constructions built by advanced civilizations to harness stellar energy. It's the kind of signature we'd expect from a Type 2 civilization on the Kardashev scale, beings capable of engineering on astronomical scales. But Tabby's star isn't alone. The Transit Exoplanet Survey satellite has identified several other stars with similar anomalous dimming patterns. Each discovery makes natural explanations less likely and artificial ones more intriguing. Then there's the biological evidence. The fossil record shows periods of rapid evolutionary change that are difficult to explain through gradual natural selection. The Cambrian explosion, about 540 million years ago, saw the sudden appearance of complex life forms with sophisticated body plans that have no clear evolutionary predecessors. More recently, advances in genetics have revealed puzzling aspects of human DNA. We carry genetic sequences that appear to have been inserted rather than evolved. Some regions of our genome show signs of what geneticists call horizontal gene transfer, the direct insertion of genetic material from other species. Dr. Vladimir Sherbak and Maxim Makakov, both mathematicians and astrobiologists, published research suggesting our genetic code contains mathematical patterns that are statistically unlikely to have arisen naturally. They propose that our DNA might contain what they call a biological SETI signal, a signature left by intelligence that influenced our genetic development. Most intriguingly, humans experienced a severe genetic bottleneck around 70,000 years ago. Our entire species was reduced to perhaps as few as 1,000 breeding pairs. Yet instead of extinction, this bottleneck coincided with the cognitive revolution that made modern human civilization possible. It's as if our species was edited. The quantum physics evidence is equally intriguing. The observer effect in quantum mechanics suggests that consciousness plays a fundamental role in determining reality at the subatomic level. Some interpretations of quantum theory propose that consciousness itself might be the basic fabric of the universe. Dr. Max Tegmark, a cosmologist at MIT, has developed mathematical models suggesting our universe might be a computational structure, what's sometimes called the simulation hypothesis. If consciousness is fundamental to reality and reality can be computational, then the line between natural and artificial becomes meaningless.